Welcome to Bite at a Time Books, where we read you your favorite classics one bite at a time. My name is Bree Carlile, and I love to read and wanted to share my passion with listeners like you. You can sign up for our newsletter at biteatatimebooks.com. You'll also find our new t-shirts in the shop, including podcast shirts and quote shirts from your favorite classic novels. Be sure to follow my show on your favorite podcast platform so you get all the new episodes. We're part of the Bite at a Time Books Productions Network. If you'd also like to hear what inspired your favorite classic author to write their novels, and what was going on in the world at the time, check out the Bite at a Time Books Behind the Story podcast, wherever you listen to podcasts. Today we'll be continuing Les Miserables by Victor Hugo. Chapter 3, Folis ac Frondibus. The garden thus left to itself for more than half a century had become extraordinary and charming. The passers-by of 40 years ago halted to gaze at it without a suspicion of the secrets which it hid in its fresh and verdant depths. More than one dreamer of that epoch often allowed his thoughts and his eyes to penetrate indiscreetly between the bars of that ancient padlocked gate, twisted, tottering, fastened to two green and moss-covered pillars, and oddly crowned with a pediment of undecipherable arabesque. There was a stone bench in one corner, one or two moldy statues, several lattices, which had lost their nails with time, were rotting on the wall, and there were no walks nor turf. But there was enough grass everywhere. Gardening had taken its departure, and nature had returned. Weeds abounded, which was a great piece of luck for a poor corner of land. The festival of gilliflowers was something splendid. Nothing in this garden obstructed the sacred effort of things towards life. Venerable growth reigned there among them. The trees had bent over towards the nettles. The plant had sprung upward. The branch had inclined. That which crawls on the earth had gone in search of that which expands in the air. That which floats on the wind had bent over towards that which trails in the moss. Trunks, boughs, leaves, fibers, clusters, tendrils, shoots, spines, thorns had mingled, crossed, married, confounded themselves in each other. Vegetation in a deep and close embrace had celebrated and accomplished there, under the well-pleased eye of the Creator, in that enclosure 300 feet square, the holy mystery of fraternity, symbol of the human fraternity. This garden was no longer a garden. It was a colossal thicket. That is to say, something as impenetrable as a forest, as peopled as a city, quivering like a nest, somber like a cathedral, fragrant like a bouquet, solitary as a tomb, living as a throng. In Floreal, this enormous thicket, free behind its gate and within its four walls, entered upon the secret labor of germination, quivered in the rising sun, almost like an animal which drinks in the breaths of cosmic love, and which feels the sap of April rising and boiling in its veins, and shakes to the wind its enormous, wonderful green locks, sprinkled on the damp earth, on the defaced statues, on the crumbling steps of the pavilion, and even on the pavement of the deserted street. Flowers like stars, dew like pearls, fecundity, beauty, life, joy, perfumes. At midday, 1,000 white butterflies took refuge there, and it was a divine spectacle to see that living summer snow whirling around there, in flakes amid the shade. There, in those gay shadows of verdure, a throng of innocent voices spoke sweetly to the soul, and what the twittering forgot to say, the humming completed. In the evening, a dreamy vapor exhaled from the garden and enveloped it. A shroud of mist, a calm and celestial sadness covered it. The intoxicating perfume of the honeysuckles and convolvulus poured out from every part of it, like an exquisite and subtle poison. The last appeals of the woodpeckers and the wagtails were audible as they dozed among the branches. One felt the sacred intimacy of the birds and the trees. By day, the wings rejoice the leaves. By night, the leaves protect the wings. In winter, the thicket was black, dripping, bristling, shivering, and allowed some glimpse of the house, Instead of flowers on the branches and dew in the flowers, the long, silvery tracks of the snails were visible on the cold, thick carpet of yellow leaves. But in any fashion, under any aspect, at all seasons, spring, winter, summer, autumn, this tiny enclosure breathed forth melancholy, contemplation, solitude, liberty, the absence of man, the presence of God. And the rusty old gate had the air of saying, "This garden belongs to me." It was of no avail that the pavements of Paris were there on every side. The classic and splendid hotels of the Rue des Vernets, a couple of paces away, the dome of the Invalids close at hand, the Chamber of Deputies not far off, the carriages of the Rue des Bourgogne and of the Rue Saint-Dominique rumbled luxuriously, in vain, in the vicinity. In vain did the yellow, brown, white, and red omnibuses cross each other's course at the neighboring crossroads. The Rue Plumet was the desert, and the death of the former proprietors, the revolution which had passed over it, the crumbling away of ancient fortunes, absence, forgetfulness, 40 years of abandonment and widowhood, had sufficed to restore to this privileged spot ferns, mulleins, hemlock, yarrow, tall weeds, great crimped plants with large leaves of pale green cloth, lizards, beetles, uneasy and rapid insects, to cause to spring forth from the depths of the earth and to reappear between those four walls a certain indescribable and savage grandeur. And for nature, which disconcerts the petty arrangements of man, and which sheds herself always thoroughly where she diffuses herself at all, in the ant as well as in the eagle, to blossom out in a petty little Parisian garden with as much rude force and majesty as in a virgin forest of the New World. Nothing is small, in fact. Anyone who is subject to the profound and penetrating influence of nature knows this, although no absolute satisfaction is given to philosophy, either to circumscribe the cause or to limit the effect. The contemplator falls into those unfathomable ecstasies caused by these decompositions of force terminating in unity. Everything toils at everything. Algebra is applied to the clouds. The radiation of the star profits the rose. No thinker would venture to affirm that the perfume of the hawthorn is useless to the constellations. Who, then, can calculate the course of a molecule? How do we know that the creation of worlds is not determined by the fall of grains of sand? Who knows the reciprocal ebb and flow of the infinitely great and the infinitely little, the reverberations of causes and the precipices of being, and the avalanches of creation? The tiniest worm is of importance. The great is little, the little is great. Everything is balanced in necessity. Alarming vision for the mind. There are marvelous relations between beings and things in that inexhaustible whole. From the sun to the grub, nothing despises the other. All have need of each other. The light does not bear away terrestrial perfumes into the azure depths without knowing what it is doing. The night distributes stellar essences to the sleeping flowers. All birds that fly have round their leg the thread of the infinite. Germination is complicated with the bursting forth of a meteor and with the peck of a swallow cracking its egg, and it places on one level the birth of an earthworm and the advent of Socrates. Where the telescope ends, the microscope begins. Which of the two possesses the larger field of vision? Choose. A bit of mold is a pleiad of flowers. A nebula is an anthill of stars. The same promiscuousness, and yet more unprecedented, exists between the things of the intelligence and the facts of substance. Elements and principles mingle, combine, wed, multiply with each other, to such a point that the material and the moral world are brought eventually to the same clearness. The phenomenon is perpetually returning upon itself. In the vast cosmic exchanges, the universal life goes and comes in unknown quantities, rolling entirely in the invisible mystery of effluvia, employing everything, not losing a single dream, not a single slumber, Sowing an animalcule here, crumbling to bits of planet there, oscillating and winding, making of light a force and of thought an element, disseminated and invisible, dissolving all, except that geometrical point, the eye, bringing everything back to the soul atom, expanding everything in God, entangling all activity from summit to base in the obscurity of a dizzy mechanism, attaching the flight of an insect to the movement of the earth, subordinating, who knows, were it only by the identity of the law, the evolution of the comet in the firmament to the whirling of the infusoria in the drop of water, a machine made of mind, enormous gearing, the prime motor of which is the gnat, and whose final wheel is the zodiac. Thank you for joining Bite at a Time Books today, where we read a bite of one of your favorite classics. Again, my name is Bree Carlile, and I hope you come back tomorrow for the next bite of Les Miserables. Don't forget, you can sign up for our newsletter at biteatatimebooks.com. And while you're there, check out our t-shirt shop. You can look in the show notes or on our website, biteatatimebooks.com, for the rest of the links for our show. We'd love to hear from you on social media. You can find us everywhere at Bite at a Time Books.